the simple answer is we have a zero tolerance policy for corruption. So on operations that we finance, we have absolutely zero tolerance for it, and we have the systems in place to both ensure the procurement processes and also the financial management, the accounting, the auditing of our finance operations.
फलामको शक्ति र गुणले भरिएको प्राइम बिलेटबाट बनेको कार्बन, म्याङ्गनिज, सल्फर र फस्फोरसको सन्तुलित सम्मिश्रण भएको, आकारमा समानता अनि तौलमा एकरूपता रहेको, गुणस्तरमा उत्कृष्ट हरेक निर्माणको मेरुदण्ड, पञ्चकन्या 500 XT र 550 XT।
David, a few things that I left out earlier was one word that I mentioned earlier as well: corruption. How does the World Bank navigate around it?
Look, I mean, in some ways it's a very easy answer, in some ways a very complicated answer. So the simple answer is we have a zero tolerance policy for corruption. So on operations that we finance, we have absolutely zero tolerance for it, and we have the systems in place to both ensure the procurement processes and also the financial management, the accounting, the auditing of our finance operations is absolutely spotless. Things happen, and we have a whole investigative arm that looks into those things, and multiple active investigations ongoing in the country right now. More broader, sort of taking one half a step back, trying to support the public financial management, such a nerdy and boring term, but public financial management and the institutions around public financial management is something that we've been deeply involved in, with great support from some of those bilateral donors that are so active and interested in the space. So countries like Switzerland and the UK and others that have been amazing partners in this, and being able to help us work on the things that maybe we otherwise wouldn't be able to work on. So building the capacity of the audit institutions, making sure that digital transactions, look, 99% of transactions in the federal system are now taking place digitally, right? 97% of wards are able to provide services digitally in a country as complex and partially remote as this. 97% of wards. So some real amazing transformation in that space. But I don't have to tell you, and you know, anyone who reads the newspaper, I read the English newspapers and a summary of the Nepali newspapers every day. Corruption is being talked about a lot in the country, and I think that it's something that the Nepali people are really concerned about, and I think that is pervasive in the political dialogue. You know, we're not involved obviously in the political dialogue, but you don't need to. But I live in the country, and so I read the newspapers and watch the media, and it's clearly a massive challenge for Nepal.
Again, I know you're not going to jump into it wholeheartedly, but just a bit. Political stability. Even when it comes to, let's say, two other countries, let's say Sri Lanka and Maldives as well. I'll touch base on that as well, just to get a perspective on it. That's the key?
Look, in my business, rather than talking about political stability, I would talk about the strength of institutions that live on beyond political changes. So making sure that you have strong ministries, strong institutions, strong agencies that can continue to operate despite changes at the top. So, one challenge that we faced in Nepal is the lack of a clear, fully federal civil service legal framework, and the constant kind of rotation of staff that we see in our agencies and ministries that we work with. Is a real challenge. Now, is that political? Is that institutional? I'm not really sure. But I think if you look at, I'll give you an example.
Sure.
Sri Lanka has just gone through an incredible political transformation. I'm sure you know about it, right? I think that you've seen a kind of an emergence of a coalition, sort of a center-left coalition, but that has captured the kind of excitement and imagination of the Sri Lankan people throughout the whole country. They won basically the whole country, even in a place that's been traditionally very divided and has a complicated history of civil conflict, right? And, working with them, one of the great sort of experiences of the last year has been able to sort of really deeply engage with them about how do you, on the one hand, pivot towards some new priorities that a different government with a different sort of political leaning has, but still maintain the fundamentals of economic stewardship and good governance, et cetera. So, and in their case, really bringing in that governance, anti-corruption, clean Sri Lanka element so much more clearly. So, we're surely as the World Bank, we are, as I said, we're not going to comment on the political matters, but our job is to kind of try to work with the policymakers that the Nepali people elect to help them achieve their goals.
I like this. I like this word, clean Sri Lanka.
It's amazing. It's a really interesting concept. It's not perfect. They have not solved the problem, but they were elected very much, I think it's fair to say, on a strong anti-corruption platform. And they've really captured, I think, the imaginations, as I said, captured the imaginations of the Sri Lankan people that things can actually be different. Now, it is really challenging. And you can bring in a cadre of very, very excellent, let's say, clean, non-corrupt people. But in the Sri Lankan case, those challenges are quite pervasive. They go down all the way down, through the system. So making progress on that and really showing progress is a great challenge for them.
A few projects that you'd like to emphasize on, that you'd like to go ahead and share. Let's start with education.
Look, education. Let's talk about the education. We've been deeply involved in education for a long time, but in recent years, in a really interesting kind of multi-donor, multi-partner approach. Let's start with the glass half full.
Sure.
Nepal's got now about 96% level of enrollment in primary education.
Yes.
It falls off pretty quickly when you get to secondary education, okay? But so amazing progress made. But the quality of education is a massive challenge. Learning poverty is high. The number of third graders who can't read or perform mathematics at grade level is too high in the country. So I think the great challenge moving forward, and we're a very, very small part of it as the World Bank, but is to find ways that in those services like health and education, that you actually start ramping up not just access, but really the quality of service. And so that's really the great challenge in the country. I mean, Nepal has again, back to the remittances thing, has found a kind of creative way around it through private education, right? So you have
private healthcare, same.
Exactly. So again, it's been from what? Remittances, money coming in, and that being able to actually, I can get my kid out of the school and put him into a private school or put her into a private school or provide healthcare in a private way. Is that sustainable? Look, we all want to see public-private participation. We want to see a lot more private participation, we think, in service delivery, but making sure that the public sector also can raise to the challenge of delivering services in really a sustainable and impactful way is a bit of the challenge there.
तपाईले हाम्रो क्लिप एकदमै एन्जॉय गर्नुभयो होला। अब पुरै भिडियो हेर्नको लागि चाहिँ YouTube मा सब्स्क्राइब गर्न नबिर्सिनु होला। व्यास मिडिया नेटवर्क।